Webinars on discussing early unintended pregnancy within the Eastern and Southern African region. My name is Charles Draichabo. I'm speaking to you right from Kampala, Uganda. And I'm very, very glad to be one of the moderators in this session. I will soon call my colleague to introduce himself, who is a co-moderator to this, but I just would like to officially welcome all of you and say that this is a very important set of discussion. We're in the second series of this webinar, and which is coming at a time, very crucial time, where we are experiencing a high level of early unintended pregnancy within the whole globe, particularly in Africa, where we have up to 1.8 billion young people reported to be experiencing issues of adolescent sexual reproductive health, especially early unintended pregnancy, with 90% happening in the part of Africa. And it's only the young people who can find a solution to this, and that's why we're having this conversation today. It's a conversation, it's a dialogue, it's not a lecture, so we'll be expecting to have very interactive discussion. If you had an opportunity to choose another session to moderate, I will exactly choose this, working with the young people. So I'm very glad, and you are most welcome. Before we move forward, I will ask my co-host, Hussein, to introduce himself a little bit before we move with other levels of introduction. To you, Hussein.
So, thank you so much, Mr. Charles. Good afternoon to everyone. My name is Hussein Melele, and I'm the Vice President of AFRIAN ESSA, which stands for African Youth Adolescents Network in Population and Development. So we more focus on promoting sexual reproductive health and right to adolescents and young people across ESSA region. So I'm glad and I hope this will be a very interesting sessions that's to learn best practice and also to have a very innovative solution that we can tackle during this kind of challenge that we are facing as young people across the region. So thank you so much. Looking ahead for a very interactive session. To you, Mr. Charles.
Thank you very much, Hussein. There was a bit of interruption there, but I hope colleagues are listening to me and hearing me very well. Now that the moderators have introduced themselves, I have the honor and the pleasure to introduce to you our key speakers for the event today. They may say a little bit more about themselves, but for now, I would like to very officially, with honor, welcome today here Dululu Hassaneni, who is the Deputy Director of Social Cohesion Department of Basic Education from South Africa. Dululu, would you like to wave? We have Dululu.
Yes, okay. I'm here.
Thank you. That's Dululu. We shall bring her in. And our second speaker for the day is Molieti Molupe. He's a sexuality education teacher and Let's Talk National Campaign Program Director from Lesotho.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Thank you very much. And you are most welcome, Molupe. So just without wasting a lot of time, let me just, like as it is in any of the discussions, there are rules, there are regulations, there are guidelines on how to proceed. Just before starting this session, I would like to give you an overview of how we're going to proceed with this session, some of do's and don'ts. That is going to happen during this Zoom webinar platform, the new normal. We're operating the new normal, so there are a few things that we need to take note of. First is that this session, as I said earlier on, will be structured in a discussion session. We'll be having panelists and the young people specifically talking to us. And we may be using some audio testimonies or short stories as a conversation starters. We shall bring those along the way. Secondly, questions and answer sessions will be available. The participants are expected to contact these through raising and typing their questions using the YouTube stream, or you can type your question in the chat box and it will be read, and the responses will be provided to you. Please be aware that we are streaming this live simultaneously, so the whole world is participating in this at the same time. And we invite you to use the hashtag say it louder and hashtag let's talk EUP. I repeat, hashtag say it louder, that's one word, and hashtag let's talk EUP throughout the session. And this session will be recorded for purposes of proper documentation. So we have got our topics for the series of young people discussion, 6 series of webinars, one happening yesterday on issue of early unintended pregnancy and child marriage. And today we're specifically focusing on young people, especially prevention of early unintended pregnancy among young people. And it is a discussion forum, and therefore we're not going to lecture, we are going to have a conversation. So be set for your conversation. But before we move into that, and to set the tone, as I said earlier on, I would like to take the single honor to introduce and welcome to you one of our young panelists here, and who is going to present to us as an opener for this discussion and share her experience, her story, life story. And this young lady comes from Kenya. She's 18 years old, and she has been subjected to an experience of an early intended pregnancy that we're discussing today. And I would like to have the honor and the pleasure to invite Mary Akinyi. Mary Akinyi is going to talk to us for about 3 to 5 minutes, and then we'll also continue with the discussion. So Mary, to you, please. The session is yours. Talk to us. Mary, you're most welcome.
Hello guys, my name is Mary Akinyi. I'm from Kenya, as you said. I'm in Form 4 in a school called Divine Mercy. Yeah, as you can see, I'm a young mom, and I have a son. His name is Adrian, is 3 months old.
Hello? Have we lost you, Mary?
No, I'm still on. Yeah. The way I got pregnant, it was because of my aunt. No, I lost my mom when I was in class 8, and also I lost my dad when I was in class 2. So I'm staying with my mom, my auntie. So, you know, my auntie, so I stay with my auntie, and my auntie is always good. She doesn't like me because she sees me as a stepdaughter. And so most of the time she likes quarreling with me. Even if I try to do something right, it doesn't seem to be right on her side. So that day she chased me out of her house when I told her that my uncle tried to rape me. So she chased me and I had nowhere to go. So I found somebody, and so took me to his house, and that's how it happens, and I got pregnant.
Thank you very much. Mary, you are through with your story, I guess. Are you? Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you very much. I think we have listened to Mary very keenly with that very touching story. A young lady who dropped out of school because of the challenges that she's experiencing, and she ended up living with an auntie who was not very understanding to her situation and was not listening to her, and she probably would have saved her if she listened to her. But even the effort she made to report those who are trying to abuse her was not listened to the auntie. It sounds and it hears to me like a common story that runs out throughout the challenges facing young people in the whole of Eastern and South African region. But I'm not in a better position to say that. I would like now to bring the panelists here, and I'll start with the Dululu. Dululu, from what you have heard and from your experience, what do you think are the main challenges that young people face while trying to prevent pregnancy? And what do you think the main factors are which contribute to these challenges? To you, Dululu.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dululu, as indicated, and I am in South Africa. I am in a place called Pretoria. I am in the office of the Department of Basic Education. I would want to make an input based on what the young mom has indicated. And as indicated by Charles, I think in his opening address, this is something that is common, especially within here in the one of our continent. We see a lot of young people that are pregnant, and they are pregnant not because of their liking. Some of them are pregnant because of gender-based violence, which I think she has experienced, but also some of the factors that contribute to them getting pregnant is also the lack of access of non-judgmental reproductive health services within our clinics, but also it's the issues around intergenerational and transactional relationships, and this is commonly known as blessers or sugar daddies here in South Africa. But I think also what she has indicated for me, in my opinion, is some of the household factors that really drive young people, especially girl children, to actually get into these transactional relationships. But also a lot of them here in South Africa, we've got a lot of orphaned children, and that are beginning to be household taking their household because their parents have passed on due to various reasons. So because we have these orphaned that eventually become child-headed households, then
Sorry, Dululu has been muted. Now you're back, Dululu. Yes. Continue.
those are the challenges of using your phone. Sometimes you get calls. Yeah, but those are the household factors that I was indicating to say that here in South Africa we have these orphans that become to be child-headed households, but also there's factors around poverty, which also drives these young people to actually get to these very early sexual debuts, but also very risky sexual behaviors. So those are some of the issues that I could pin out from the presentation that the young lady did. But what is also key that I would want to mention is the issue of reporting. I think as a continent, I think as a country, as South Africa, we also have serious challenges around lack of reporting. And once they report, there are particular challenges that they come up with, and which in most instances make them to actually not to come forth to report the abuse that they would have experienced. So I think this is also one key factor that I would want to indicate to say that it is an issue that we also as a country are struggling with, the lack of reporting of these abuse cases. Yeah. Let me pause for now.
Thank you very much, Dululu. You have very elaborately, posed the question. It's no wonder that you are a highly qualified and a highly competent professional in the fields of operations and management, social development, transformation, and bioprevention and child protection within your area and working with the NGO. So I think that submission couldn't have come from another person that. But you have really raised the issues and pinpointed the issue of poverty, the issue of lack of proper reporting, the issue of not listening to the children themselves that Mary had described in her situations. And from Mary's presentation, we also are exposed to the fact that sometimes the attitudes of the community and the perceptions and the myths. Sometimes there are certain communities that tend to think that it's okay for young girls to get pregnant because then they can earn for us a bride price. And sometimes it's because the girls, they become so vulnerable because they say, you are not good enough. What are you going to do? Why not educate the boy? Why educate the girl? So those attitudes and those beliefs in the community do exist. Now, I would like to pick the mind of Moriali, to you. What do you think are some of the attitudes and beliefs in the society that tend to lead to early unintended pregnancy? And what are some of the common myths that we have to deal with when coming to issues of early unintended pregnancy?
Thank you very much. As you said, my name is Mudiehi Mudupi. I'm a CSE teacher. I work with adolescents in Maseru, Lesotho. One of the attitudes that seems to be driving EUP amongst the society, mainly in the rural areas here in Lesotho, is the belief that child marriage is okay. Many people believe that young girls have to get married as soon as they go on their periods. People do not take into consideration whether these young girls are physically ready, whether they are emotionally ready to deal with the plight of being pregnant. People do not care about that. That is the unfortunate thing. I was listening to Mary's story and I thought it was very unfortunate also because you hear from her story that had her aunt helped, maybe something could have been done with her situation, which is another attitude that drives the high rise in EUP, where people believe that young girls can just go ahead and be used as sex toys. There's also this mentality of men, whereby men believe that young girls are raised to believe that men should be providers. As Medululu said, we have a lot of intergenerational relationships because young girls tend to believe that a man is there in their life to provide for them and they are just there to be sex objects. And one of the myths I believe that drives, I think it's mainly girl-based, and not just girls, let me say with boys, where they believe that sex is a transitional stage for them that shows their some sort of maturity. So they believe they have to have sex. They get into this relationship and they equate sex to love. And in their blindness about the emotions, remember, as teenagers, they are just growing up and their bodies are reacting to hormonal imbalances that they are experiencing at this stage. So they are sort of in a phase where, as adolescents, they need to adjust first to their bodies. So they are confused, some of them. So they have all these stories being told by people that, you can't be a virgin forever. If you are a virgin, then your blood will run to your head and you will run mad. So once girls hear stories like that, nobody wants to get mad, so they go ahead and they get deflowered. Sometimes they get deflowered by elderly men, and they get in relationships where they have no control whatsoever in terms of condom use or actually negotiating safer sex practices. Another attitude I want to believe, it's the attitude that we have with our own health workers, whereby there's a lot of prejudice when it comes to young adolescents. We have health workers actually shunning these young girls when they go into clinics to try and access some of the SRH services. So these attitudes, these beliefs, these myths are there, and it's something that I believe we need to, in a way, find a way to discard. And the young girls themselves find a way to learn, because they are in a position where they can actually do something about it. They have that much power, if only they believe it. Also, another thing I think that we should do that we do as communities is we place a lot of blame responsibility on girls. If a girl falls pregnant, then it's her fault, as if she got pregnant on her own. nobody actually focuses on the other part, the other person that actually got this person pregnant, so that we can be supportive, so that we can actually lend a hand and try and find out and actually stop some of these intergenerational or relationships that are actually mainly, you will find, very, very abusive. I'm okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that very elaborate presentation. And you've really articulated the issues. We are challenged with the issues here of whether the communities are protect or they are perpetrators of early unintended pregnancy. We've heard the story of Mary, who thought the aunt would have helped, but looks like the aunt ended up to be a perpetrator because she wasn't listening to her. And we have all these myths that are going on in the society. They say, now I'm hearing a new one, that if you do not have sex, the blood will run into your head and you'll get mad. I've not heard about that before. In my place, commonly, they also say, if you have sex while you are standing up, you will not get pregnant and things like that. It's so pathetic a situation, but it is all coming down to taking advantage of the young girls and making them more vulnerable so that those who are stronger in the power will take advantage of them. But the young people know the stories, and we all know the stories, but what solution is there? So I'll come back to Dululu. What do you think can be done in order to prevent some of these things in our society from happening so that we do not expose and have increasing cases of early unintended? You are still muted, Dululu. Yes.
Yes, I'm back now. Charles, thank you. And thank you, Memudiehi, for articulating all of what you just said. I can't not agree with you on all the points that you have indicated. Just to sideline, Charles, one of the myths as I was growing up that we were told was that if you had sex very early in the morning, you should drink a very hot, very dark black coffee, and you shouldn't put sugar on it. That's one of the myths that I grew up with. You can imagine what does that mean right now. But coming back to your question as to how do we think young people can assist us in actually dealing with this EUP, one of the things that I think young people can do is to changing their risky behavior. I mean, we tried to articulate the factors or the risk factors, and we didn't touch much around the issue of substance abuse by young people. And this also makes them to be easily vulnerable. So they need to really change their ways in exposing themselves, especially around the issue of substance abuse. Second to that, I think that young people, they need to understand their rights, and it is well to know and understand your rights. But I always say that rights go with responsibilities. You cannot just always claim that my right to this, my right to that, when you do not understand the responsibilities that are attached to all the rights that you are claiming as a young person. One other thing I think as a country that we also push for young people to do is to ensure that they become agents of change. And what we mean by that is because we have a whole lot of evidence that indicates when they are engaged with their peers, they listen better. And when they are engaged with their peers, they tend to have a listening ear. So we really encourage that they should be agents of change, whereby they get supported through various programs, where they then, one of those programs that become key is the peer education.
That's good.
But also young people need to be ambassadors of advocacy on behalf of themselves, but also on behalf of their peers. For instance, in our country, there is a lot of legislation framework that favors their right to education, their right to health, but also their right to have information. And I take a point that as much as they have all those favorable legislation, there are issues that are lacking around implementation. And where we identify these gaps, we then encourage them to be part of the solutions rather than just look and wait to be told what to do. Because I think we all agree to say that a lot of the solutions from all the challenges that they have, they would come from them as young people, because what they are experiencing now, whether through knowledge wise, through exposure, it's what I did not when I was 18 years old. So there is quite a number of things that they can assist us as policymakers towards the implementation of some of these favorable legislative frameworks that we have. I will pause there. Again.
Thank you. I will take it from there. And I would like to take the liberty now as a moderator to pose this question directly to the young people who are listening to us here. Mary and the team. The discussion has been put ahead by the panelists. We have heard from Mary, of course, we heard from our panelists, but I would like to pose the question to the young people. Just in a flip of a second or a minute, tell us, what do you think the young people should do in order to prevent early and unintended pregnancy from the perspective of a young person? Anybody, you just put up your hand and tell me. Who would like to have the first shot? Tell us, you tell us your name. We know Mary is there. We have Wikista, we have the rest. So if you're ready, just put up your hand and then you'll tell us what young people you can do as young people. Anybody? Yes, I can see a hand there. Is that Mary? Oh, that's Wikista.
Yeah.
As
for me, I can suggest that for young people, they should avoid taking drugs and substances, because when they use them, like they may be easily convinced by their peers to do what they are not intended to do. And another thing is that they should keep focused in what they do. If you decide that you want to learn, you can make it. But you can make it if you decide that even if one tells you to do the things that you are not intended to do, you can just say yes or no, because no one can get hold of your hand and force you to do something that you are not intended to do. And also having high self-esteem can help.
Thank you. Let's say it louder. Who else would like to say it louder?
Say it louder.
Say it louder.
Say it louder. Who would like to say it louder among the young people?
Say it louder. Say it louder.
Say it louder, yes. Any other person? Okay, if there isn't, you'll come. There will be opportunity for you to come. If you don't feel comfortable saying it, please type it. We'll get the message and respond to it. Don't be constrained to say now. But before I move into calling my colleague to take over from this presentation, I just wanted to ask if Molière, that name is very difficult. If you have anything before I pass it on, and in regards to what you think are the motivating things that young people can be told so that they can prevent early and unintended pregnancy. In most cases, they accuse the young people, accuse elderly people and say, you tell us don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. But you don't tell us what we should do. What do you say? What should they do?
I think one of the key things that adolescents should do is to love themselves. That is the most important thing they can do for themselves. Because in loving themselves, they know their value, they know what they are worth. and they know waiting is worth it. So that when adults come and say, wait, do this, don't do that, it is something that they have already set for themselves. It is not anything new. So it is something that I would say to young adults, love yourselves, because in loving yourself, you tend to respect yourself, and then you sort of command that other people should love and respect you too.
Thank you very much. Pamela, do you want to say something?
Yes, Pamela speaking.
Yes.
I'm Pamela. What I can say, adolescent girls should abstain from having sex. And if they are sexually active, they can use condom to prevent pregnancy.
Okay. Pamela is
Can
saying,
I-
Pamela is saying, should you really feel pressed and you think you can't contain it, please protect yourself by using condom. And we have also messages that are coming online to all attendees. Feel free. You can write your questions and contributions. We shall respond to it. That's very well noted. And then from Metobi to all the panelists, I believe we should also normalize discussing issues of sex and sexuality among ourselves and support each other to navigate adolescence. Please say it louder. That's the hashtag, and we shall continue to say it louder. I will, at this particular time, and in the interest of time, call in my colleague to take over the co-hosting, moderating this session. But please, if you have any question, if you have any comment, please just type it and we'll come back to you. So my pleasure to welcome Hussein Melele. You are most welcome to take it to the second phase of this discussion. To you, Melele.
Thank you so much, Mr. Charles, and a warm congratulations to you for a very good first sessions on our programs. I think indeed people are really saying it louder based on the issue that we've been speaking about, early pregnancy and unintended pregnancy. And as one of my takeaways on the first session is we have big challenges on issues of communications in terms of parents or guiding communication to their fellow adolescent girls and young people in general. People are finding it very hard to communicate in this kind of issues of reproductive health and right. But also I've been noting issues of reporting. Adolescents, they felt they don't have a clear space that they can report these kind of issues from their parents. So how best can they report on the existing mechanism which are put in place of making sure we can end these kind of challenges? So those are among the very key issues that I get from the first sessions. Also, we had a very good testimonial from Mary based on what she went through and built up from where we are right now. And our key speakers have been engaging also in adding into that. And taking that into considerations, we have other young lady who passed through almost the same. She was a young mother on her very tender age, but also she's taking it as trying to find a way to share her experience with other fellow young people, like on how bad they can prevent themselves from this kind of issues of early and unintended pregnancy, and how bad they can live up to their to their dream. So this is the right time. Let's hear from her. Her name is Olatilwe Moraine. She's from South Africa. And we are bringing to you her video of her testimonial. So please stay tuned and watch the video. Then we get right back to the discussion.
Good day, everybody. My name is Olatilwe Moraine, and this is my testimony regarding my experience as a teen mom. So I would firstly like to ask everyone to please allow yourself to feel whatever it is that you want to feel. Let your impulsiveness serve as lessons instead of more ammunition against yourself. Understand? So with my experience, I would say that it was more of me trying to fill a void that was within me than more of me going with what my peers were doing, like the peer pressure, etc. And I was just more focused on feeling and looking grown than actually living a life of an actual teenager. While at it, it was war upon war with my dad. My mom, since my dad was never really in the picture. So I thought she was like being hard on me, or else she was really trying to adjust to my changes and be there for me. I would like to advise the other teens that you need to rather focus on building your sense of self-worth. If you ever felt unwanted, unworthy, unloved, or prefer bottling things up because you feel or felt that you can't express yourself, the negative story that you create about yourself is the most damaging part that we as teenagers need to deal with. So instead of having strict expectations upon yourself, rather have more self-love. It's the hardest journey, but trust me, it's worth it. So the most affected part for me was the academic side, because I had to drop out. My mom really tried with the homeschooling and everything, but I wasn't really coping. But because it was one of those things that I have to fake the independence life, etc., I didn't tell her. I didn't even bother telling her that I'm not coping. I can't do it. My relationship with my mom wasn't really the best until 20. So since she was always the bigger person in both whatever toxicity, sorry, that we were going through, I then decided to be the bigger person, and go into the big my life, things I don't like. And it's I found myself a very close friend. The rest of the family, I can say we're pretty close, except for the fact that most of them were disappointed when they found out I was pregnant. So my role as a young person addressing unintended pregnancy, that's something that I will embrace proudly, because what? I I sometimes feel like I'm doing something wrong, but to hear people say that they admire how I juggle both work, school, and being a mother motivates me to being a better person and makes me believe that I can actually be a better person than I'm already am. And sharing my story as a teen mom, not only to my peers, but to adults as well, um, makes me feel like it's an eye-opening story to everyone, that you need to understand certain things that someone goes through before you judge them. And like I said, my name is Oradilo Moerane, and that's my testimony.
Thank you so much, Marie, for the testimony on the video. I think we have heard from her. She spoke about the issues of peer pressure. That's most of the girls that they do face on their very tender age, that the peer pressure is really, really there. So it's pushed them to do things that they are not even sure that they are supposed to be done. They're not even sure that they put them in such kind of risky situations. And she spoke also about issues of parents' relationships. So, if she had really good relationship with her parents, maybe it could be even ease the communication, like sharing the channel that she's been facing, and how bad her parent maybe could even advise her on how bad that she can overcome those kind of situations. But also, I like her positivity. She focused much also on saying that we can be better, can be better. These are some challenges that people do face, then you can even overcome it. So she's more of like advocating for how best you can build up yourself from the challenge that you've been facing and how you can overcome that. We have many testimonials like that. So as we are going through with this, I'm glad we still have our panelists that who can keep sharing their experience and practices based on different issues. So let me start with Molie Molupe. Can you hear me, Molie?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes. You heard about the testimonial which we from playing it, and
yes.
You have over 10 years experience working with adolescents, girls, and young people on these
Yes.
kind of issues of reproductive health and rights. What do you think that young people they can do to help their friends to prevent pregnancy and attain accurate information on issues of reproductive health and rights?
I think the most important thing that adolescents can do for each other is to support one another. Instead of sharing in the shame or actually being the ones, the perpetrators of discrimination, they should support one another. It is important because it is in supporting one another that they will be able to provide each other with information that is relevant to situations, information that is adequate, information that is relevant. And in doing so, they will be able to help one another. Another thing that they should do is they should make use of the CSE curriculum that is taught in their schools. It is important because this curriculum, it equips them with accurate information that is relevant not only to them in their age phase, but it provides a variety of topics that they can share with, that they can actually brainstorm on in peer-to-peer education sessions. Another thing is the skills that the CSE equips them with are skills that enable them to deal with life pressures, peer pressure, the pressure from not just their peers, but peer pressure from other social problems that they might experience in life. It also equips them with resilience skills, so it is important. It also enables them to, in a way, bridge a gap between themselves and their parents, find ways to communicate to their parents, because we've realized that the communication between adolescents and parents not happening is one of the major problems that contribute to EUP. So they could give each other tips on how they could do it, so that in the end we have peers talking to parents, adolescents talking to parents about their issues on SRH issues. Another thing is, I believe boys and girls should avoid early, steady relationships. They should avoid dating very early, because if they avoid dating very early, then they avoid unwanted pregnancies, they avoid having sexual encounters which are not protected, let me say that, or that are impromptu, because you'd find most of them, they just have these encounters at the spur of the moment, unthought of, and then the consequences are very bad. Also, they should avoid encouraging one another to engage with elderly people for transactional sake, because it's one of the major factors. You find young adolescents date men older than them for transactional favors. It's not even men, but because in this case we are focusing more on girls who are getting pregnant. It's them who get pregnant with the elderly men. It's important that as peers, they find other things, other activities, join group activities that rather remove them, the activities that remove them from wanting to engage in sex, boredom, because when they are idling, you find they tend to reduce their boredom by indulging in sex. So it's important that they find other activities, sports, clubs, anything that could enable them to interact with topics that are building rather than being destructive.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the very elaborated response on the question that I asked. But also, I liked so much when you stressed about how best we can smooth up the communication between parents or guardian with their adolescents, girls and young people, which
it is very
really,
important.
very key, very important on ending early and intended pregnancy. And and just coming to Madame Dululu, you've been you've been speaking about young people role on how best they can be agent or change maker on these kind of challenges, like how best young people can come up with the solutions, how best young people can influence positive change in tackling this kind of issues. And we've been seeing some of kind of young people are very active and engaging, coming up with various innovation and initiatives on addressing to this kind of challenges. Just I would like to know from you, what are resources available for young people who are themselves dealing with an early pregnancy, that they can use to leverage the situations?
Oh, thank you very much for saying for that brilliant question. part of me being an activist that I am wants to just, before I respond to my question, wants to just elaborate a bit on what Memudiei has indicated around the issue of elderly men, you know, the transactional activities that happen between young girls and elderly men. And as much as I totally agree with the fact that our young girls need to be resilient and in a very, very strategic or resilience, maybe the word resilience is best here, to say, to understand it is not right for them to engage in those transactional activities. But also, the role shouldn't be, these are elderly men, old enough to be their safeguards, if I may put it that way, old enough to be their brothers, their uncle, old enough to be first. So they all need to blame the responsibilities that are happening, especially the ones that are happening for sexual activities between themselves as and young girls. And I mean, statistically here in South Africa, we do have a sense of young girls that are getting pregnant, and in most instances they are getting pregnant because of elderly men, and that will also, I feel strongly that we need to also emphasize that as much as it is the responsibility of a young girl, but it is also the responsibility of those elderly men that are actually making those young girls pregnant. Now, coming back to their role as young people in assisting themselves, I think it is important for young people to really understand that they need to know who are they and set themselves goals as to what do they want to achieve in life. And I think there is none of a young person, be it a girl child, be it a boy child, that would want to be a young mother or young father. None of that would happen. So when they set themselves goals, I think it also gonna assist us a lot in terms of them understanding what they need to do, how they need to do it. But also they totally also agree. I mean, they totally rely on our support as either government, civil society, NGOs, and a number of UN agencies that we work with in our different countries. One other thing that I want to also stress is their commitment or their involvement in their communities. They need to participate in our communal activities in the communities where they are. And here in South Africa, for instance, there is a framework that we largely use to engage young people, and that is called Child Participation Framework. It is led by the Department of Social Development. And that is key for us to ensure that whatever that we do that is going to affect young people, be it positive or negative, because you never know up until you engage them, then that framework compels us as government to actually ensure that they are fully participate in terms of being consulted during or before any final decisions could be made around their lives. So that also is one way where they get to be capacitated to ensure that they form part of the communities where they are, because the schools where they are, they form part of that community. And whatever that happens, be it good or bad in a community, it has a direct impact of affecting the school. Yeah, thank you. Let me pause there for now.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. before you pause, just to add a quick follow-up question based on issue of engagement. Sometimes we tend to forget that men do play a very important role on ending early and unintended pregnancy. On your point of view, how best do you think that we can engage young boys and men in this fight of ending unintended and early pregnancy?
Let me respond to this to you by this. We have a movement in the country that we call Girls and Boys Education Movement, right? And this is the movement that we are solely working together with UNICEF for obvious reasons. I mean, I need not to outline why UNICEF with young people. But what we are then saying with the movement, we are intending, I wouldn't say that it is at a space where I am happy about it, but we are intending to ensure that each and every child at a school belongs to a movement. And what we have done, therefore, is to actually club together all that what interests them in a school. I mean, Nemudia talked about issues around sports, talked about issues around arts in general, talks about a number of issues that young people get to be interested in. So we use that movement to give them life skills. And this life skills is in support of what is happening in the classroom as a co-curricular activity. To say what you are learning in the classroom has to be complemented with what you have to learn outside the classroom. What we also emphasize through the movement is the fact that we need to have values as young people. What is your value? This is also based on the issue of understanding who you are, where do you come from, and what kind of exposure that you are exposed at. And so this is the movement that we are in the country using to ensure that young people begin to support each other, but also, call themselves into order.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for emphasizing on that, and thank you for those who are writing us questions. That is very important and it's very key. So keep up your question coming, and we try our level best to throw them to our panelists that they can respond to some of the questions. Coming to Molly, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes,
I can hear you.
We have one of the questions from Rodney Jonga. He spoke about the re-entry policy. In some countries in ESA regions, when adolescent young girls got pregnant, they are kicked out of the schools and they can't go back to school, so they lose their right to educations and everything starts going astray. So how best can we advocate the re-entry policy programs across ESA region?
Currently in Lesotho, we are working on the EUP manuals. We are working on implementing the policy of EUP. So within that, we will be dealing with the re-entry. Regionally, I think the focus should be more on what is in the best interest of the girl child, more than anything else. What that child needs more than anything else. And whether her going back to the same school, because another issue would be, are we advocating for the learner to go back to the same school, or are we advocating for the learner to go back to school again? That is the issue. If we are saying the learner should go back to the same school, is it in the best interest of that child? Will it protect that child? Also, what does it say in terms of, will this child have enough time to actually take care of the child and then do the schooling? How much pressure will we be putting on her? If she will be, how much time should she be given between her delivering the baby and then her going back into school? And if she's able to do that, she needs support not only from the government, but from the parents, but from the community, from the learners, and from the teachers as well.
Yeah, that's quite important, and thank you very much for that. I'll get back with the other one. going to Madame Dululu. There is a question shared with our fellow young people. They speak about negative culture and religions practice, which at some point of the time, they results to those young girls getting unintended pregnancy, So they're asking like, how best can they go against those kind of tradition and culture which have been there for quite a time, that it's their culture, it's our culture, it's our religious issue. So how best can we make sure that despite of those being harmful in practice, but we can go against them and we can move away from that?
Thank you, Hussein. I think it is important for young people to actually understand themselves, and part of them understanding themselves is also ensuring that they understand the cultures where they are coming from, and understand that within cultures, we know for a fact there are those that are negative, which then they need to know those that are negative. And secondly, once they know they are negative, they should involve themselves. I mean, we've talked a lot about how they need to be resilient, how they need to empower themselves and capacitate themselves. Then they could challenge those negative aspects of our cultures. I do not want to sit here and say that everything within our cultures is wrong or is negative, because there is a lot of the positiveness. But I think as parents, we're also failing them to let them know as to what are those cultures that they could stick to, or they could strengthen their resiliency as young people. So they really need to ensure that they ask, and when they ask in a manner that is respectful, and they ask in order to get relevant information around cultures that are no longer serving them good as young people.
Okay. Thank you so much for that elaboration. And I have another question coming from Zambia. So this is either Madame Dululu or Molie, any one of you that can answer. It's interesting. So they are saying that we talked about issues of abstinence. That's we are telling that the young girls, and even at some point that young boys, they have to stay abstinent from sexual activities. But in reality, that they start being sexual active in very early age, and even the fact in that is proving that. So how best can we go through this?
Should I start?
Okay. No, Madululu, you go ahead. I wanted to say something, but you can go ahead.
Oh, okay. Just in response to the question from Zambia, I think Memudie talked about CSE, which I think it's a framework that we are using at the region as a whole, because that is where key information for young people that they need to know what is relevant to them according to their developmental age, but also culturally based. So they need to empower themselves around that CSE. And I know for a fact that CSE, especially here in South Africa, has been lambasted for a long time. But we kept on as the department to make sense that it is something that is necessary, because our young people are getting very early pregnancies. And also the issues around involvement of boy children. We have begun because there is an amount of evidence that indicates that young boys feel very excluded in all of these empowerment initiatives that we are putting forward. So we have actually begun to ensure that we include young boys, but also they also indicate to us as to what is it that they would want to see in terms of changing the narrative. So those are the few things that we are beginning to see, and we are beginning to see small results, because then the young boy that was then few years ago is no longer thinking the same as the young boy of today. So the information around CSE is very relevant for me, but also their spirit of resilience as young people. They should keep on doing that so that they get the relevant information.
Yeah.
Now, to add on to what Medilulu has said, yes, for adolescents to use the content in the CSE is very relevant because, like I said, it equips them with a lot of skills. Now, in terms of abstinence is a choice, but it should be a choice that young people make, knowing very well the consequences if they don't. Because when you abstain, you delay so many other things. You delay exposure to STIs and HIV, you delay exposure to emotional trauma, you delay EUP, you delay so many things that can actually hamper with your progress in life and in school. It is an encouragement, but it is also a choice, because we don't just preach abstinence. We also say when a child is unable to abstain for so many other reasons, because they have a lot of reasons, young adolescents that prevent them from abstaining, they should at least use preventative measures. There are preventative measures. Make use of the SRH services that are in their countries all over, because those are the ones that will enable them to actually prevent EUP if they have decided to go ahead and not abstain. It's not preaching as such, but it is something that we are encouraging them to do, because the consequences thereafter are very detrimental, and most destroy their lives. So in saying learners should, or young girls and boys should abstain, it's not preaching, but it's more of an encouragement where we say you avoid so many other things if you abstain, and you get to set your goals and you get to achieve those. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Mary, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
So, yeah, I need a bit of like to share experience from your end. How best do you think that you can help your fellow young girls to understand themselves and to avoid early pregnancy? How best do you think that you can do that?
Yeah, for me, what I can tell young girls like me is to be to have high self-esteem and to be determined. If it's you to decide what you want to be, or who you want people to call you, or how you want to manage your life. So as let's say you're in school, it's you to set your goals and work hard to achieve them, and avoid peer groups. Yeah, just be you and do yourself, and don't listen to what people say about you. Just be you yourself, and love yourself and respect yourself, so that others can respect you.
Oh, thank you so much. Okay. Go on.
Yeah, another thing is these girls who go into drugs, please avoid them. Drugs are not worthy your life. Know how much your life costs. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. So what I get from Mary, she's saying that her fellow young people, they have to set their life goals ahead. Also, they have to avoid peer pressure from the groups. But also, she spoke about issues of drug abuse. We have to stay away from drug abuse. Either it's a girl or it's a boy. But also knowing your personal worth, like exactly what plans you have for your life and how best can you go with that. So as just we are winding up, both of my panelists, you spoke about issues of stigma. I think some mentioned about the issues of stigma from health workers. In spite of that, we've been telling our fellow young people that they have to go and seek and demand services and vital information to the health facilities. At some point when they go there, the reception is not very convincing, and all they face a little of stigma from that kind of end. So how do you think, how best can we avoid that situations and have a very friendly environment that it can influence young people to go as many as possible, taking those friendly services? Madam Dulul or Molia?
I think it's mainly, it's very difficult, you know, but it's important for the health workers to understand the role that they play in the adolescents' lives, because they are very key. It is them that offer SRH services, and if they do that with prejudice or they mock these young girls, they make them fearful. So I want to believe that the government should do something about that. It should ensure that these services, there is an adolescent-friendly corner where probably a young nurse or a young doctor is the one in services, somebody who understands very clearly the issues that young people go through, so that it is at these corners that young girls and young boys get services that are specific to adolescents. And there is nobody that knows that when I go into that corner, I'm either going to get my ARVs, or I'm going for SRH services, or I'm going to tell that report that I have a headache, therefore I need Panado. These corners should be, they should be in one place specifically for youths. And then we work on the attitudes of the health workers, because health workers are very key in the prevention of EUP as the ones that provide the SRH services. So the government, I want to believe that the government, in the sort of be talking of the Ministry of Youth and the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Health, all of these should come together and try and work something, because currently what we have some standards, we have set some standards that should be used within the health services to help or to assist the adolescents in accessing the SRH policy, the SRH services, I mean. But other than that, because the nurses and the health workers are also part of our community, I think it is important we start it at the community level, where we say that within our communities, if we support these young people within the communities, if as the community we sort of talk to the health workers, because we have community health workers even our communities where clinics are not easily accessible. So it starts there with us, with our attitudes as people. How do we approach young people so that we enable them to go beyond the issues of EUP, so that they don't start by fearing to access these services?
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And for the sake of time, we have to wind up. But before that, I would like to hear from all the panelists and from my fellow co-moderator, Mr. Charles, like what's your key takeaway from this session? Starting with Mr. Charles.
Thank you very much. Just before I give my takeaway, I wanted just to be sure that the people who have raised comments or questions have their issues. So I will quickly to allow in a few minutes just to try to run through some of the questions. There are many of them are comments, but it'd be good for people to hear the comments that are coming from young people themselves. One is that saying young people should set goals for themselves and be determined to achieve. They should focus on what they want. This is a comment and a message from a young person to young people. There's another one here that my question is, how can we make our leaders to believe that CSE is very important to young people? Because I believe next year they are removing it from the school. So there are fears that actually that the CSE may be removed from school and the leaders are not seeing the benefits. So maybe when we are preparing to close down, somebody can quickly say something on that. And the other one is, I believe parents need to open up to young girls when it comes to sex issues, because even though parents are forever telling young girls to say no to sex, that's not enough. And that's from Namibia. And then we have another one that at least young people should act and be responsible. In that way, they will earn the respect they deserve. And then we have one from somebody called Chikobe from Rosal Rai Memorial Trust in Zim is asking, it's true that some cultural beliefs and religious beliefs promote early unintended pregnancy. That's an affirmation. And they say now we are almost running up. So as we close up, and that you have asked, I just would like to say a few things before I give my colleagues. This to me has been one of the most thrilling conversations. It just reminds me of an intergenerational dialogue we had one time in Uganda, where young people were conversing with the elder people. And the elder person said to the young people, looking them in the face and say, young people, where you are, we were there. Where we are, you may not be. And the young man, there was a young man who was very courageous and actually retorted and said, it's true, an elder, where you are, we may not be, but I won't tell you where we are going, you will not be there. Our generation is a generation that is in a context of what is not there during your time. We're in a different context. So this speaks very loud in a sense that we say young people to young people. We are not talking about statistics here. And the message to the young people is whatever the parents tell you, whatever we say, the answer is in your hands. It's only you to safeguard yourself. What others can do is just advise you. So from me, I pick that we need to, in various ways, exert a level of self-restraint and self-discipline among the young people themselves. Two, the issue of drugs and substance abuse kept on coming. I think young people are sending messages to themselves that under the influence of drugs and substance use, the judgment of the young people will be affected. So we advise you to stay safe and away, free from drug and substance abuse. And the third one is that we need to set your goals, the young people. You need to set your goals right. If you set the right, and then you know what your worth is, and you'll be able to pursue it. To me, what I'll say just in a nutshell, and I'll give it back to other panelists to give their wrap-up messages. Thank you. You are muted, Hussein.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chaz, for that very good takeaway from your side. And let's hear in a minute from Madame Dululu. What's your key takeaway of all what I'll be discussing here?
My key takeaway is let's open up the dialogues, let's open up those conversations between and amongst ourselves. And when I say that, I mean us as adults, as parents, let's open those difficult conversations. Let's open those difficult dialogues so that we know that our children know better than what we are. And I want to end it by saying, say it louder. It's not enough. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's a very strong message. And to Madam Mole, what's your final remarks on this?
My final remarks on this is that as young people, we have the future in our hands. Everything is up to us. It is in the goals that we set. It is in our worth, in how we see ourselves. Anything beyond that scope we can achieve. It's a matter of us knowing what we want and believing that we can attain it. We have to believe that we can attain whatever it is that we want and do away with disturbances or things that can actually derail us along the way. Alcohol, peer pressure, intergenerational relationships, all of these are not important. What is key right now is you as an adolescent, live your life, enjoy it, but always make sure that you do not fall pregnant. Like the one said, pregnancy at the right time.
Oh, thank you so much. That's a very key concluding remarks. And coming to Mary, can you hear us? So, any concluding remarks from you for just a minute?
Ask you this question. I have a question which I want to ask. Yeah, I'm hearing you people talking about CSP. What is it?
Okay.
Okay, may I?
Yes, please,
Yeah.
just in brief.
CSE, it's in full, it's comprehensive sexuality education. It's a program or a curriculum within schools that teaches boys and girls, learners about sex, sexuality, and other SRH issues, including drug use, including HIV and AIDS, access to contraceptives, and all of that. Identity, human rights. It teaches. It has about a wide variety of topics that deal with young people.
Did you hear that, Mary?
It's comprehensive sexuality education.
So we'll stay in touch
Mary?
with you after the end of these sessions on making sure you have all the necessary information that you need, as you can share with your fellow young people.
Yes.
So do you have anything to say before we wind up?
No, I don't.
Oh, thank you so much, guys. So as we were winding up, thank you so much for all of you from the we'll continue these sessions next time. Just on reminding you, our next session will be on Tuesday, 3rd November 2020, and it's based on addressing increase in gender-based violence during the pandemic. So don't miss it up. So try as much as you can and tell other friends that to join next time on making sure that when we are discussing about issues of gender-based violence, you're there and we share our key issues, we share our best practice, and also share our key lessons learned from each other and how best we can improve our situations. But also, I would like to convey our deep appreciations to the Let's Talk team from the UNESCO, from the SAF AIDS, to UNFPA, Save the Children, Sweden, and our fellow partners, and especially you, young people, my fellow young people who have been here, and our dear panelists for sharing your experience, for sharing different innovative ideas that we can share, that we can utilize from each other. Let's keep opening up of these different conversations. I think this is just one of the very good beginning. So let's keep up on sharing this kind of issues. And just one thing as to remind my fellow young people who are leaders, we have to do our best as we can, as we all know that we have different commitments which are coming to ending of their terms. I can say some we have ESA commitment, which is coming to an end in this year. We have issues of family planning 2020. So as young leaders, as young people, we have to evaluate the progress of this kind of commitment on making sure we see where the gaps and where the area that we can advise that they can be improved. So as we can have very good reproductive health and rights in a very practical way. So this is also to call to my fellow young leaders that we have to be very innovative on our programming and in the initiative that we are doing. We have to be evidence-based approaches, and also have to document our findings and our works so as we can have impactful on our program. So again, this is the end of our session, but it's the beginning of the third session from the Let's Talk webinar, and the third session will be about gender-based violence on the November 3rd. It's just next week, so stay tuned. Tell your friends, tell other friends, and say it louder. See you until next time. Thank you so much and be blessed.
Say it louder.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much, everyone.